So the JLP Manifesto is out. Some things I like, some things I don't like. I'm Dion Jackson Miller. Thanks so much for joining me. Time for tea. Now, these manifestos have scores of promises in them. So, same way like I did for the PNP manifesto, I'm concentrating on the section to do with justice and legislative reform, because I think those are important and I'm really interested in those areas. Remember, I want to hear from you, so comment below. Tell me what you think about the proposals as well. Remember to like the video, share it with somebody you think might be interested. Also, subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet subscribed, and click that notification bell so you know anytime I drop a new video, because that's how we grow the channel, alright? That's how we continue to be able to bring content to you. So I read the section on justice and I read the section on constitutional reform. Then I went back through both those sections a second time and a third time, because the JLP really can't be coming to people about constitutional reform and justice issues in 2025 and make zero reference. And when I say zero, I mean none, zilch, nada, to removing the UK-based Privy Council as Jamaica's final court of appeal. So I find that really interesting, and I think what that does is really it tells us what is the Wholeness Administration's posture towards the Privy Council, meaning they want to keep it. But as I said, it's 2025. I mean, more and more countries have been moving away from the Privy Council. I think it's a big omission, and I don't understand the fact that there is no reference at all. Then now the comment about constitutional reform. The manifesto says the JLP will prioritize Jamaica's transition to a republic. They said they'll also continue to broaden national consultations on wider constitutional reform to ensure that the voices of all Jamaicans are heard and respected. Now, of course, I like the fact that the JLP says they want to move Jamaica towards republic status. That means getting rid of the king as Jamaica's head of state and putting in place a Jamaican head of state. But again, it's just baffling that they're talking about removing the king as head of state in Jamaica, moving the British monarch, therefore, out of our parliament. So we're moving the king, therefore, according to the proposals, from 2 of the 3 branches of government, moving him out of the parliament, that's the legislature, moving him as head of state, so moving him from the executive, and yet we continue to hang on to the king's court. That don't make no sense. And it's interesting that they don't see the irony of those proposals. So, as I mentioned, they're also talking about consultations on constitutional reform. Important issue, except I'm concerned about what those consultations could look like. The last round of so-called consultations on constitutional reform were not well done. A major problem as well is that the government kept insisting they were consulting widely when they clearly were not. The whole approach was problematic and badly thought through and badly executed, and I'm not going to go into all of that now, but suffice it to say, if what they want to do for constitutional reform is more of the same, then we're in problems. So let me put it this way. I endorse a principle here, but I'm concerned about the execution given the track record. I really like the idea of making laws more clear to ordinary people here meaning people who are not trained in law. The manifesto talks about using artificial intelligence to help explain the laws. Now, I think this is really a big deal, because as it is now, most Jamaicans can't pick up a statute, can't pick up a law and read the law and understand what it's saying. They can't understand what their rights are or what it is they're supposed to do or not do. And that's a problem in a democracy. People need to be able to understand the law so they can understand how they're supposed to behave in society. And it's high time we got away from this idea of the law as some language that you need to be able to go to school for years and years to be able to understand. Sure, we need legally trained people to do legal work, but we also need to make sure that the law is understandable to people who are not legally trained. So I really like this idea. I also like the idea of bringing more clarity to what representation of elected representatives is supposed to mean and explaining what MPs are supposed to do. I think that's important. I think, though, the underlying problem is that the job descriptions they want to explain to people are weak and lack any semblance of accountability. I did a whole video on this that you can watch to see the problems I had with it. So again, the idea sounds nice, but given the underlying issues, not sure how the execution is going to make sense. The manifesto also speaks about strong and fair anti-corruption and oversight bodies. That's great. I endorse that in principle. I'll reserve judgment until I hear more about these plans and exactly what is supposed to happen with these oversight bodies. The manifesto also talks about increasing access to public information by modernizing the Access to Information Act. Again, I 100% endorse this idea, especially since it's something me and other press freedom advocates and civil society advocates have been calling for years. The Access to Information Act was passed in 2002, came into effect in 2004. A Joint Select Committee of Parliament did a report on it in 2011 with recommendations for reform. Not one of those recommendations has ever been implemented by either party. However, it was this administration that tried to sneak into Parliament an amendment to the law that would have further restricted access to cabinet documents for up to 70 years. The only reason it never passed is because some of the prips we and tell we, and there was a big uproar and the government backed off. So I hear them saying they want to broaden access, but I'll wait to see exactly what's planned. I want to see a draft bill. I like the paperless court initiative. Now, what they say is that the paperless court system will be based on an international model and will allow court documents to be filed more simply and for documents and files to be found more easily and to be stored more effectively. Now, this was actually first announced, I think, in 2024, if not before, but implementation has been dragging. The Chief Justice Brian Sykes raised concerns about that in January 2025. The last thing I've been able to find is June 2025, when the Justice Minister said the project is going to be fast-tracked. Now, it is a very important project. Trust me, from the days when I used to go to court, it was common assault for you to turn up for a matter only to hear say, the file lost. Judge didn't have no file, so the matter wouldn't be able to go ahead. And in fact, one law firm I'd worked at briefly had a regular practice of doing extra bundles, extra files, so that when you reach judges' chambers and you hear say the judge didn't have no bundle because they lost the file, they would just hand the judge the extra copy. That was just their normal way of acting because this has been such a huge problem in the courts. So yeah, this is a great initiative. Let's see what happens and how it proceeds. The manifesto talks about building more modern judicial complexes. Great move. Some of these rinky-dinky courthouses have outlived their usefulness. We either need to incorporate them into some new modern facility, maybe as a heritage component, or if that can't work, just move right along and get new, more modern facilities. So again, really good here. The manifesto talks about the ongoing project to reduce backlog in the courts. Jamaica has been embarrassed numerous times because of the backlog and delay in the courts, and these delays, these backlogs have real human consequences. One of the worst I've heard was a recent story that my Radio Jamaica colleague Raquel Porter did. The name of the story was Justice Evades Angela. It was about a woman with 7 children, and 3 of them had died in a house fire in 2004. That house fire had been deliberately set. She had seen the men set the fire, and they in fact had been arrested, charged and convicted in 2010. They had been sentenced to life in prison with eligibility for parole after 14 years. But they went to the Court of Appeal. They won their appeal. The appeal court ordered a retrial, but the retrial didn't go ahead until 2014, and there was a hung jury, meaning the jurors couldn't agree on a verdict. Cut a long story short, the matter couldn't be tried again. The court set them free because the matter had taken so long to get to that point that their rights would have been violated if the matter had continued in court. So yeah, delay has a human face and it's often a very tragic one. So anything that's being done, all this work to reduce delay, to reduce backlog is something we have to cheer about. Also in the manifesto, introducing a national mediation policy to standardize and expand the use of mediation as a primary tool in dispute resolution. Talk about restorative justice and child diversion programs, expanding those and expanding the victim support division. There's also a promise to strengthen the capacity of the Office of the Children's Advocate as well as the Office of the Public Defender, and to fast-track legal aid for minors, the mentally ill and indigent defendants. All of these are good initiatives that I support. They can only make the justice system better. So what do you think? Comment below. Want to hear from you. Just keep it civil, alright? Like the video, share it with somebody you think might be interested, subscribe to the channel and click the notification bell so you know anytime I drop a new video. I'm Dion. Thank you so much for watching. Back to tea.